Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar in the series of webinars of Reinherit Coordinated Support Action Horizon 2020, coordinated by the Cultural Foundation of the Bank of Cyprus in Nicosia. This webinar is about tourism. It's the first time that we do this webinar on tourism in the Reinherit series. There have been two previous webinars, and there will be a lot more coming up. So keep looking for the topics that will be presented in the next couple of months. We would like to start by explaining a little bit what is our network, European Cultural Tourism Network. Which is the only pan-European network of destinations, regional local authorities, tourism boards and associations, universities and research institutes that brings together the cultural and tourism sectors to cooperate towards sustainable cultural tourism development and promotion. The network was formed in Brussels in 2009 as a merger of two previous networks and currently has 39 members in 21 countries, including 6 non-EU countries. ECTN is a founding member of the European Heritage Alliance and the signatory of the European Tourism Manifesto. We've been joined by Jordi Tresserras, who is my co-presenter. He will come in a bit later. Our vision is to achieve a high-level collaboration between our members in the field of cultural tourism and to establish a close cooperation with institutions of the European Union and other international institutions and organizations and networks. The mission is to bring together the tourism and culture industry professionals working in different regions of Europe to exchange experience and information on best practice and to develop new approaches and innovations. Our objectives are to ensure close cooperation and integration between the tourism and cultural sector at all levels, local, regional, national, pan-European, facilitate sharing of research results, as indeed we'll be doing in this Reinherit project, to facilitate the development of transnational interregional cooperation projects, as indeed we have been able to create Interreg Europe projects in particular in the past 5 years, to develop and improve training opportunities for professionals and academics, to enable exchange of experience and best practice between both practitioners and researchers, to develop common responses to European Commission and other EU institutions' consultations, to link with other networks, and to create new and innovative approaches and tools. ECTN was selected by the European Commission Director General Education and Culture to be a key stakeholder in the 2018 European Year of Cultural Heritage. We were the first stakeholder and the only stakeholder that had a tourism mandate related to one of the 10 priorities or initiatives at the time, which was on tourism and heritage, responsible and sustainable tourism around cultural heritage. We're doing a conference every year, an annual conference for the past 10 years at least. Last time this year was held in Croatia with the topic of relaunching European tourism through cultural heritage and digitalization, and this was in the scope of the Reinherit project as well. We also do an annual awards of Destination Sustainable Cultural Tourism. This started 2014, and since 2018, the European Year of Cultural Heritage, the awards are in partnership with the Europa Nostra, European Travel Commission, and X-Tour, occasionally supported by other European networks, association and cultural routes. At this point, I will hand over to my co-presenter, Jordi Tresserras, Dr. Jordi Tresserras in Barcelona, to talk about in general, to introduce the subject of cultural tourism, sustainable cultural tourism, and then I'll come back to present what we're doing with the charter. Jordi, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Manos. In this sense, it's very interesting because the ECTN propose, in collaboration with other institutions as UNESCO, the Council of Europe, and the European Commission, to the definition of what is cultural tourism. No? In this sense, we accept or we create, in collaboration with these organizations, no, the concept to talk about cultural tourism, integrating cultural heritage, tangible and intangible, the arts production, all the creative and performing arts, and also cultural and creative industries. No? It's very interesting because we add, after several years after the first work, also the concept proposed by Greg Richards about creative tourism. And in this sense, creative tourism is added as a kind of tourism that offers the travelers the possibility of developing their creativity potential by actively participating in courses or experiences regarding and related to the identity of the place. No? Now, in ECTN, we are working in this to combining both concepts, no? Cultural and creative tourism. Of course, for the we in this sense with the World Tourism Organization, the World Tourism Organization add and include this kind of definition, including this concept of to work with the intangible and tangible cultural attractions, products, and in a touristic destination. No? Combining arts, architectural, historical and cultural heritage, culinary heritage, literature, music, and I commented before, no, also the creative and cultural industries. No? Manos can add any comment if you.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. The next, in the next slide. Okay, in the next slide, according this World Tourism Organization Framework Convention on Tourism and Ethics, that because now they are working cultural tourism from this point of view, from this perspective, from this working group on cultural tourism and tourism ethics. No? The tourist policies and activities shall be conducted with respect of with this culture, no, with this immaterial, material culture, arts, and also the cultural and creative industries. No, this is an important point because consider the links for a sustainable tourism, no? Protecting heritage, protecting arts, and also analyzing the impacts of the positive and negative impacts of tourism in destinations. But in relation with the negative impacts is to work for the mitigation of this kind of impacts. And it's also very important in this point to include the open and accessibility to tourist visits, talking about all kind of publics. No? And in this sense, ECTN was one of the organizations who is working for this, no? For this accessibility of cultural tourism to all kinds of publics, with this idea of equality and integration. And of course, we have the benefits of cultural tourism. It's very interesting because after the CHARTS project, carried out by ECTN. There are some Peter De Bruyne, the coordinator of the World Heritage and Cultural Tourism at the UNESCO, contributes with several organizations as ICOMOS to create a project, a program, the World Heritage and Sustainable Development Policy in 2015, considering the contribution of and the benefits of cultural tourism, especially in relation with promoting growth, employment, and creating incomes for the local population, no? And also promoting the economic investment and quality tourism regarding this kind of cultural attractions. And on the other hand, reinforce the importance of the capacity building in this kind of areas. It's very useful because when the United Nations approves the 2030 agenda with the 17 development goals, culture is not directly related to this, but is in a transversal perspective. The same with tourism. Tourism is not included as one of the goals, but it's very important because if we analyze, is also presence. There are also presence of this in a transversal perspective. No, in this sense, we include 4 of the goals with a direct presence of cultural tourism in this kind of integral and perspective. But of course, if we analyze, we have practically in the 17, we can see in this transversal perspective, no, how culture and tourism can contribute to the sustainable development goals, no, in the 2030 agenda. I will show you here some of the examples. One, the most important in this sense, in the 8, the 8 is related to the promotion of this sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, no, related to the employment. In this sense, it's very important. The main sources of employment related to cultural and creative tourism. Here you can see a list of this kind of jobs related to cultural tourism. One of the problems that we have in Europe, but not only in Europe, in general in the world, is that we have a lot of problems to identify how many people is working now in cultural tourism. This is one of the priorities of ECTN, no? And also regarding in relation with our project, how we can quantify, and it's very important to analyze them in order to have the importance of cultural tourism in relation with the employment. No? It's very interesting because with the Charts project carried out by ECTN, we also identify new jobs. No, for instance, the cultural concierges in cultural hotels, no, or the cultural hotels itself, no, historic hotels, art hotels, design hotels, gastronomy hotels, no, and also another job is the manager of cultural and creative tourism experiences, no. I think that is one of an interesting contribution of our group, no. In relation with the goal 11, it's interesting because it's one of the goals related with cultural heritage, and in this sense, the indicator 11.4.1 is the only one who talk about the importance of cultural heritage, and in this sense we have we can explain, no, we can represent the benefits of cultural tourism with this kind of cultural hotels, no, that I mentioned before. In this sense, there are several experiences. Here I can show you one of the experience in Spain. Paradores de Turismo is a public company that collaborates with local small and medium enterprises in the different areas, and it's very interesting because it's a chain created in 1928 for the preservation of historical buildings, castles, palaces, fortresses, convents, monasteries, and to adapt this kind of historical buildings, no, for tourism. No? In this sense, we have more of 97 in Spain who offers employment to more than 400 professionals. No? And it's one of it's an interesting presence. And of course, we have another example. Here is one of the oldest festivals of music and dance. Is the oldest festival in Spain that took place in the Alhambra in Granada, a World Heritage Place. No, and it's very interesting because with the crisis, with pre-pandemic and also post-pandemic crisis. Now this festival is financed not only by the government, the national and regional governments, but also for a group of 30 enterprises that these enterprises sponsors the festival and introduce an interesting concept for our project, no, and to analyze for us that is not the concept of the social, the corporate social responsibility. They introduce a concept to be analyzed that is the corporate cultural responsibility. No? And in this sense, it's very interesting for us that because we are working on cultural tourism, no? How the tourism enterprises can contribute also for this, no? To introduce and the contribution to the cultural sector, no, and to the tourist sector for the safeguarding and also the valorization and the conservation of cultural heritage. No? On another goal, the 12th, is related to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. No? And in this sense, it's very interesting because it introduced an important point that is the importance to develop and implement tools for a monitor sustainable development impacts for sustainable tourism, but this sustainable tourism associated to the creation of jobs, but also promoting local culture and products. No? Here you can see an example that we analyze from ECTN. That is the example of the shoppings with identity. No? We are working in two kinds of shops. No? Shops with history, with a tradition, the emblematic shops in Europe. That is an important point to be considered. But also how we can introduce shopping with identity. No, in this case, is a world monument, a World Heritage Site, the Pedrera, and how they created a link, and a special link with local designers to obtain this kind of products, no, of souvenirs with identity. And also regarding this kind of we can show you also the goal 14. The goal 14 is related to the conservation and sustainability of the oceans, seas, and marine resources. And it's very interesting because one of the points, one of the targets, talking about the fisheries, aquaculture, and also tourism. Tourism related with this kind of sustainable development using is the blue economy, no? And in this point, this sustainable tourism related to the oceans and also related to the fisheries and aquaculture infrastructures. You can show in my region, in Catalonia, several examples. No, one is the Balfego tuna tour. Is a visit to the sustainable bluefin tuna fisheries in the south of my region, of the south of Catalonia. Another example is, for instance, the recovering of the traditional cuisine of fishermen, and also not only the receipts, but also the tools, no? And in this sense, is for the influence of materials from outside Europe. We need to restart or to reinforce, no, the presence of this kind of the Catalan casserole, because we have a risk to lose this, no. And another example is the creation of a network of traditional maritime and fishing villages that is now one of the most important brands from the Catalan coast, no, for to reinforce in this sense how this heritage and traditional villas can work together, no, to present their identity, to promote especially cultural, creative, and especially culinary tourism in during all the year, no, not only in summer times. In this sense, it's very important because cultural tourism can also contribute to reinforce through the identity, no, to offer a destination not only during the touristic period, or the most important touristic period, but also during all the year. And to finish with this kind of goals, here another example in a palm grove. It's interesting because if people see this image, can think in the eastern Mediterranean areas or in the north of Africa, but this is a palm groves in the south of Europe, in Elche, in Spain. And is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And through the cultural tourism initiatives, it's very interesting because a sustainable tourism of these palm groves can contribute also to have also jobs and especially a sustainable tourism for all the year, no? Because, for instance, these palm leaves are used in the religious tradition for the Christian Holy Week, and now it's possible to see how they use these kind of crafts during all the year, and also the productions or the harvesting of dates, pomegranates, jujube, or other citrics, no, and also with different experiences related to the cultural and creative tourism. And also it's very interesting because as ECTN experts, we are invited to participate in the Global Sustainable Tourist Charter. That is the renovation of the Charter of Lanzarote of 1995. And here we introduce this concept, no, in these charters, no, because the previous chart don't have practically mention to culture, no, and in this sense we introduce this point, no, cultural and creative tourism as a driving force for a sustainable tourist development through the responsible management of cultural heritage, material and immaterial, arts, with this concept of arts, including all kinds of arts, and cultural and creative industries, a transversal and overall vision of UNESCO cultural conventions. No? And in this sense, maybe we can also introduce for a future this vision also of the Council of Europe, of United Union recommendations, no, in this point.
Okay, thank you, Jordi. So we had all these challenges for developing and promoting cultural tourism and creative tourism. And as a result of the Charts Interreg 4C project that ran between 2012 and 2014, at the end of that, in September 2014, we launched the first editions of the Charter for Sustainable Cultural Tourism, which did not exist previously. There were other charters and declarations, but nothing specifically or recent on sustainable cultural tourism. There was the Cultural Tourism Charter of ICOMOS, but it was 15 years old. Jordi will come back and explain the update of that recently. But we had set out the objectives to build on the experience and exploit the outputs, methods, results, policies, and strategies of previous projects and initiatives, such as ICOMOS as well, in the field of culture, heritage, and sustainable tourism development strategies, to potentially transfer high relevant good practices between the participating regions and Europe-wide, as an added value to regional policy formulation and implementation, as well as to contribute to implementation of the Lisbon and Gothenburg agendas at the time, Lisbon being on employment and Gothenburg being on environment. Of course, now we have other latest priorities as well. But this was the situation in 2014, and this led to the launch of the Charter as a statement of principles on policies and strategies to guide the development, planning, management, operations, and promotion of cultural and heritage tourism in the European Union and beyond, for the benefit of destinations, communities, businesses, citizens, and visitors. The purpose of the Charter is to bring together in a single, comprehensive, and integrated document the main principles, features, findings, conclusions, and recommendations, best practices, and priorities regarding cultural and heritage tourism, to aim to build on all relevant previous initiatives, declarations, conventions, resolutions, opinions, and charters, to exploit synergies and facilitate implementation of recommendations by national, regional, and local destinations, authorities, and agencies. The overall aim is to encourage sustainable and responsible tourism policies and actions across Europe and beyond through engaging cultural heritage with innovation and cohesion, targets of European Union at the time, but still valid. The principles was to look at all previous projects, ICOMOS, UNESCO, UNWTO, World Tourism Organization, Europa Nostra, FedEcrail, from European Commission communications relevant to tourism and culture, responses and resolutions to the European Parliament and the Committee of the Regions and the European Economic and Social Committee, relevant aspects of the European Tourism Forum, the European Travel Commission publications, and also the work of the European Heritage Alliance, which represents 50 organizations, pan-European networks, associations of cultural heritage. And this led to priority themes for sustainable cultural tourism development and promotion, starting with 12 topics. Yes, I will jump straight to the 12 good practices of chart, which was on climate change, the relevance of what now is better termed climate action on climate change regarding the heritage preservation for cultural tourism, accessibility to heritage in all forms, physical as well as intellectual accessibility, effective partnerships to to promote cultural tourism at all levels, the involvement of host communities for responsible tourism, quality criteria in cultural tourism, information to visitors, place marketing approaches, strategies, cultural routes, typically of the Council of Europe, but also other European cultural routes, railway heritage as an asset to develop sustainable cultural tourism products, as well as local products and gastronomy, including wine, traditional skills and trades, as examples of intangible heritage that can be used also for cultural tourism products, and finally cycling for tourism. These were 12 themes that we started with, and in the process, we added additional priority themes 2 years later on intangible heritage assets, industrial heritage assets, heritage interpretation facilities for visitors, digitalization and innovation in all its forms for sustainable cultural tourism, sustainable mobility and accessibility and responsible travel within destinations and for access to destinations. This is linked to smart destinations as well. Cultural and creative industries' contribution to cultural and creative tourism, mobilizing volunteers. A very important aspect of the cultural heritage sector is mobilizing volunteers to reduce the operating costs of small museums and associations, and also intangible heritage assets used for tourism, like craftsmanship. Religious and pilgrimage tourism as a sustainable cultural tourism activity. And finally, the experience economy synergies with cultural tourism. These were in the second edition that was published in November 16, including also the European year, not the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development by United Nations World Tourism Organization. And then the challenge was for the third edition of the Charter as part of the European Year of Cultural Heritage 2018, with one of the 10 European initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, being on tourism and heritage to promote sustainable cultural tourism, responsible sustainable tourism around cultural heritage. And this included the latest developments at the time, the new agenda for culture published by the European Commission at the time, the legacy, anticipated legacy at the time of the European Year of Cultural Heritage, declaration by ICOM, the European Council, the International Council of Museums, the Berlin Call to Action by Europa Nostra in June 2018, and the Barcelona Declaration, which was a joint effort by Nextur, Europa Nostra, and ECTN to highlight the benefits of better places to live that are better places to visit. These were important additions also, the Siam Reap and Muscat Declarations on Tourism and Culture by United Nations World Tourism Organization and UNESCO, the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development 2017, followed the Cultural Heritage Accounts for Europe, a publication by Europa Nostra with a lot of other specialized institutes and associations. The European Tourism Manifesto for Growth and Jobs, published at the time by the European Travel Commission with some 50, 60 organizations in tourism, pan-European. Committee of the Regions, also opinions, tourism as a driving force for regional cooperation across the EU. And at that time, the Smart Capital Awards that had already started, launched. Then we had identified in 2018 9 additional priority themes on maritime, coastal, and aquatic heritage for tourism, as Georgie mentioned, also linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, where explicit mention of tourism is included. Creative tourism, again, Jordi explained, started like cultural creative tourism, the kind of creative aspects of cultural tourism that can be brought in as an additional benefit to the visitors. Education and training opportunities for cultural and heritage tourism, age-friendly tourism, what is called silver tourism, over 55s, over 60s, youth incentives for cultural tourism through heritage appreciation, informing the younger generation of travelers in a different way, approach them in a different way to make them more likely to visit heritage sites as part of their travel experience. Wine tourism explicitly now from gastronomy tourism, conservation and its contribution to cultural tourism in all its forms, sharing economy impacts on cultural tourism, and finally, but most important, the enhanced governance that can lead to cultural tourism development, and also including, very important, the funding aspects, new funding sources, fund raising for cultural tourism development at local, regional, national, and European levels. The legacy of the European Year of Cultural Heritage was quite extensive, but I would like to mention only a few aspects. The main effect for us is a new definition of cultural tourism, sustainable cultural tourism, that was made as part of that year, whereby sustainable cultural tourism is defined as the integrated management of cultural heritage and tourism activities in conjunction with the local community, creating social, environmental, and economic benefits for all stakeholders to activate tangible and intangible cultural heritage conservation and sustainable tourism development, whereby sustainable tourism development is defined by the WTO. Other legacy of the Year of Cultural Heritage was the contribution of sustainable cultural tourism to urban and regional development. It was launched later on as a Horizon 2020 project. Several projects were developed along these lines to promote the culture of Europe's cultural roots and other sustainable tourism initiatives. And the Barcelona Declaration that I mentioned already as a joint effort initiated by Nextur and Europa Nostra and ECTN as contributors.
Now we introduce also.
Yes. Now over to you, Jordi.
Perfect.
To explain what happened with ICOMOS.
Yes. As you know, the ICOMOS, this is the third international ICOMOS Charter for Cultural Tourism. No? The second, no, comes from 1999, no? And in this sense, we start 8 years, during the 8 years, with a process, no, to introduce changes, no, in the ICOMOS Charter for Cultural Tourism. Of course, we introduce all the recommendations that included in the ECTN Charter for Cultural Tourism is very important, no? But we also include comments and discussions from people from different continents and from different countries, no? And the main important points, no, to introduce changes of this charter is the first is to include the participation and to talk about the equal benefits in the framework of tourism, no? And also including concepts that are in the Agenda 2030 as questions of equality of men and women, and especially the inclusion of the most vulnerable social groups for the cultural tourism benefits. No? And also how we can support to the citizens, vulnerable groups and communities to participate in tourism to obtain benefits. No, and also the different degrees of tourism impacts. No, the positive and negatives, and also to work from our perspective, how we can mitigate, this kind of especially the negative impacts. Another important point is the carrying capacities of several cultural attractions, festivals, events, and how we can use this kind of carrying capacities measures for create a sustainable or more sustainable development. No? Another important point is the work with the dissemination and interpretation of heritage, within the framework of tourism, and also how we can sensitize the tourist sector and also the private organizations, for regarding the conservation of this kind, and the social responsibility or the cultural responsibility in this regard, for the conservation and of cultural heritage, and how we can promote the dialogue between tourism and heritage, and of course. It's also important to introduce to another two important aims, is to analyze and achieve the confluence of the document, with the principles proposed by ICOMOS and other organizations. In this sense, we introduce the heritage impact assessment, related also with the touristic infrastructures. In this sense, now we are working with the UNESCO, to introduce this in the operational guidelines of the World Heritage Convention. Also, the approach based on rights, and another international documents as the Agenda 2030, and the Sustainable Development Goals, and also the United Nations climate change policies, how the new energies or the renewable energies can impact to the landscapes, and also how we can there are also these impacts of these renewable energies also in cultural landscapes or in cultural roads, and of course the third important point is how we can update, this also the doctrinal documents produced by ICOMOS in this sense, and especially how from the International Committee of Cultural Tourism of ICOMOS, how we can create synergies with another organizations to create not only a charter, to create an application and implementation of this charter. For the reason, in my case, I'm not only member of ECTN. I'm now also president of ICOMOS Spain. We are working with the ICOMOS International, and also with this committee of cultural tourism, and how we can implement the chart, and how we can implement the chart, and how we can also create synergies with another instruments, And in this sense, as Manos can comment you, we are also trying to propose an update of our chart of cultural tourism from ECTN in order to adapt, to the Agenda 2030, and the new rules for the future, But in this sense, and also creating synergies with the proposal of this international charter of cultural tourism, that in this sense it's very interesting because ICOMOS changed the name. Now the current charter is a charter for cultural heritage tourism. It's focused mainly in this point. The main difference with the charter of ECTN is that the ECTN Charter is more inclusive. It's focused not only in heritage, it's focused also in arts and in industrial and cultural and creative industries. No? And the Charter of ICOMOS is focused mainly in cultural heritage. No? And the charter was approved now recently, the last 10 November of this year. And here you can see the link of the chart. And as I comment, it's focused on cultural tourism, cultural heritage tourism, and from the perspective of ECTN, that in my case as member of ECTN, I worked in the charter. We will try to update our chart, to adapt also some proposals from this chart. But in our case, and in this sense, I propose, when we are discussing, the ICOMOS Charter for Cultural Heritage Tourism, I propose that it's very important to have a real dimension of cultural tourism, not only focused in heritage, and in this sense appear in the charter, a point, to try to work with this general perspective to include also arts and creative and cultural industries. That is the perspective from ECTN that is more integral, because it's very important to work with all this dimension, and unique dimension in the project. But well, I think that open new perspectives for the future and for the update our chart of.
Certainly. Thank you, Jordi. And in fact, yes, we had already interaction with ICOMOS in our last conference, where the head of ICOMOS Norway, I believe, also a member of the International Cultural Tourism Committee, presented these results. And we see this as a complementary. Of course, it's complementary to what we're doing. Yeah. ICOMOS has specific mandate, and it's international. We're more European, and we can include also the other things that Jordi mentioned: the culture, creative industries, creativity in all its forms, using contemporary culture for attracting visitors, like festivals and so forth, and also the digital heritage and the digital facilities, which I believe are not strong in the ICOMOS Charter. In that respect, we have identified priorities for the next phase of cultural tourism. But before that, I would like to mention that the latest development since February this year, coming out from Brussels, from the European Commission DG GROW, is the so-called Transition Pathway for Tourism, which is a very detailed and useful document that has been a result of co-creation with the tourism sector, with tourism stakeholders, and we were also in this process. And now ECTN is one of the official supporters of this Transition Pathway for Tourism. It's called Transition Pathway because it's addressing the transition, the dual transition, the green and digital transition, which is the priority of the European Union until 2030. It has the 2030 as a target, which is very convenient because that also coincides, dovetails with the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And it has a mechanism, a procedure for implementation, what they call co-implementation. And in this respect, in our last conference in October, we had a presentation by the European Commission DG GROW highlighting what the Transition Pathway for Tourism can do for us, to the cultural tourism sector, and it is actually quite a lot. There's many references there also on the digital side of things, like virtual and augmented reality, digitalizing cultural heritage assets, innovative tourism aspects, and so forth, in order to develop and implement smart and sustainable tourism strategies at the right level in order to emphasize local identity, specialities, by encouraging the promotion and quality craftsmanship, especially for regions that highlight their gastronomy, local knowledge, and traditions. And from now on, of course, this will be included in our updating and revision and enhancing our charter in the coming year as part of Green Heritage project as well. In that respect, we have identified these priorities for cultural tourism. Number one priority, which is actually the topic that we're addressing in Green Heritage Coordinated Support Action Horizon 2020, that this webinar is part of, is to involve innovative and digital media, including augmented reality and virtual reality. Another priority important with the latest developments actually is the cultural roots of the Council of Europe. And now, since earlier this year, I believe, there's been a memorandum of understanding or cooperation between the Council of Europe, Secretary General level, with the United Nations World Tourism Organization. In that respect, UNWTO recognizes that cultural roots of the Council of Europe are indeed important developments that can lead to increased interest in sustainable cultural tourism in Europe. Third priority is this is not in other importance, many other importance, but number three in this list is to promote creative tourism based on cultural creative industries. We mentioned this a few times today. Jordi mentioned as well. To promote also the European Heritage Label sites. European Heritage Label is an initiative that started as an intergovernmental initiative between some member states, European Union, then it became a European Commission initiative, and now we have some 48 sites of European importance that have achieved this label, including one of our members this year. So it is different to cultural roots of Council of Europe, and it's very different to the World Heritage site of UNESCO, because it has to be a European heritage, strong European heritage identity involving more than one European nation or member state. So it is actually could be a very good basis to develop new projects and services around European cultural heritage, pan-European cultural heritage as well. Next priority is to enhance heritage interpretation in all its forms. We work together with this with the Interpret Europe, the European Association for Heritage Interpretation. They usually speak in our conference, and we go to their conference, and we had some cooperation on specific projects in the past. The climate action, a big priority. It's also in the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have actually in 2014, between 2012 to 2014, 10 years ago, we started with this, when actually climate change was not on the agenda of many organizations at the time. So we were probably one of the first to highlight the importance of climate action for cultural heritage in tourism. And now the Climate Heritage Alliance, which is a huge climate heritage network, I believe it's the correct term, it's actually recognizes ECTN as potential stakeholder to provide the tourism aspects of climate action on heritage. And finally, last but not least, is the latest developments of smart tourism and smart destinations. Smart tourism initiative of European Union since 2018 to create smart tourism capitals. Every year there are 2 tourism capitals announced. As we had European Capital of Culture in the past, now we have a European Capital of Smart Tourism. For next year, we're very pleased that our presidency, Paphos in Cyprus, will be one of the two smart tourism capitals of Europe, together with Seville in Spain. And as part of that, we plan some events as well related to re-inherit and to sustainable cultural tourism, including sustainability, accessibility, digitalization, culture and creativity. Culture and creativity being explicit one of the 4 criteria in Smart Tourism Capital of European Commission awards, but also there is a Smart Destination initiative of WTO, and these two have come together last month in Valencia, which is current European capital of smart tourism. And now we have a united understanding, I think, between the destinations and the tourist operators and the businesses and the providers, what can be done at the local destination level, regional destination level, to create more sustainable but smart solutions, using smart solutions, in particular, in all their forms, to promote this kind of tourism in Europe and for the benefit, of course, of the visitor. In this respect, we start, as of now, the last conference in October this year, to update our charter for the 4th time. It hasn't been updated for 5 years, since 2018. It will be mainly, this process will be mainly throughout next year, 2023, which we have excellent synergies because we have the Inherit project, of which we have to organize a mobility event, a study tour for the project in Brussels, also involved in the European Union institutions, but also other cultural institutions in Brussels. We want to involve all the legacy of the European Year of Cultural Heritage with DG Education and Culture of the European Commission, because now, 5 years later, the European Commission has launched an initiative, contract, there will be a contract by somebody to develop the Heritage Hub, which everybody can participate, and we will be also participants in this initiative. The Smart Tourism Capital, I mentioned already that cultural heritage and creativity will be the theme of our next conference to be held in Paphos as part of the European Capital of Smart Tourism next year, next October 2023. The transition pathway for tourism that I mentioned, the co-implementation process of that, of course, related to cultural tourism in our case and to smart tourism as well. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, Jordi mentioned to start with. Yes, it's 3 or 4 are particularly interesting for tourism, but tourism runs across all 17 goals, and we are ready to incorporate this into the charter in the next phase. Also, something we haven't mentioned so far is the UNESCO Creative Cities Network and Sustainable Tourism at Heritage Sites, that Jordi mentioned. European Travel Commission also, that we work together in the awards, further developments in the Tourism Manifesto, and post-COVID initiatives for relaunching, regenerating European tourism. This have to be also reflected into the new version, or the updated version of the Charter. The Council of Europe Cultural Routes Declaration. There have been 2 declarations during, actually one before the pandemic, one during the pandemic. Now there's a 3rd declaration as a result of the conference that was held in Greece earlier this year in October. This is the Sibiu Declaration and the Tbilisi, that was done digitally in 2021, and 2022, the Hanya Declaration that is now actually being formulated. So we want to incorporate this Council of Europe important outcomes in the new charter. Cultural diplomacy is something that we haven't mentioned so far. This is an initiative or an activity of the Committee of the Regions, whereby they recognize at the local regional level the importance of heritage and culture in promoting European issues worldwide, using culture as a diplomatic basis. Very strong activity there by the Committee of the Regions. The Europa Nostra manifestos that have been published in 2020, in 2021 in the Venice Declaration or Manifesto, and this year the Prague Manifesto. These have also to be incorporated, although last year and this year there's no explicit reference to tourism, but of course a lot of what Europa Nostra does in cultural heritage is has a lot of synergies and impact on what we do in cultural tourism. Therefore, has to be recognized, and we worked already with Europa Nostra very closely in the last 5 years, and now we have our honorary member, Peter Jasper, who is the vice president by Europa Nostra, is our honorary member since this year. Therefore, we have quite close relationship, and we like to involve all these outcomes of Europa Nostra in the new version. The Europeana Network, the Europeana Foundation, being an independent body of European Union, however, they have a lot of digital heritage production activity, and we're a member of that network, the European Network, and therefore this will be also reflected in the new version. And finally, what Jordi described, the synergies with the ICOMOS International Committee on Cultural Tourism that was actually now is officially approved document of ICOMOS with all its differences that Jordi highlighted. We are complementary to each other, and therefore we have to recognize what is the common ground and where we can actually add more things like the digital heritage, for example, or the digital facilities that of particular interest to ReHerit CSA. So that's all from us. Thank you very much. Our website will give a lot of more information, and also there will be another webinar that we're going to do in January on smart tourism and smart destinations, especially, and maybe other topics could follow as well as part of this project or as part of other initiatives that we have now on maritime heritage, on gastronomy, wine heritage, culinary heritage, and intangible heritage as well, industrial heritage, some things that are not very well covered in previously. So we'll be active in this field and will contribute to this process as a co-implementation process, co-creation process next year, most of next year, with the aim to publish the updated charter in 2024, 10 years after the original charter in 2014. Thank you very much. So if any questions in chat, we'll answer. Jordi, I don't know if you want to say anything. Sum up.
Yes, we are open to the discussion.
Yes, certainly. You can join the forum.
Yeah.
On the forum in the digital hub, there is a specific page or specific room for cultural tourism. So you can join this discussion there for months to come. And how to do this? You have to join to the
yes.
The link. The link is given there. The ReHeritHub.eu news. You can join the forum and contribute with ideas. Actually, we're not exclusive, and we're not saying we have covered everything under the sun. We're open to new ideas that can come forward to enhance our approach in the next version of the Charter to be more inclusive and have all the synergies that Jordi mentioned. So with that last word, I think thank you for being with us this Friday afternoon, and look out for the next events. Also, there are other topics in Reinherit of particular interest to heritage professionals, but we'll come back with at least one more webinar on smart destination, smart tourism in January. Thank you and goodbye.